All right, and welcome everyone to Whirlpool episode 2. Today, thank you for joining us. Today we are joined by myself, obviously, Tex, Clutch, and Mr. Matt Pizza. Today we're going to talk about the state of the league of EGL, the playoff situation. We're not going to go through all of the scenarios. We're just going to focus on the high level ideas and talk about some teams that are in the running to make playoffs because we've got some secure spots and we've got some open spots still up for grabs. And we're also going to talk, we're actually going to open up here in a minute once we say hello to our friends here. We're going to open up talking about the meta and how that might impact some of the teams going into this last week in the playoffs. But first, I want to say, hey, Clutch, how you doing? Welcome.
Hello.
And
I'm
Mr.
good.
Matt.
I'm
Oh,
chilling.
nope, go ahead, Clutch. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to hear you
No,
talk.
you're good to go. You know what? Go to Matt Pizza. All right. I'll talk later enough. I'll talk too much and later on when I
Good,
break down my
good.
team. Don't shut up.
Now, Matt Pete, I haven't gotten to talk to you for a hot minute. How have you been? How's life treating you?
Just vibing. All my summer school's almost done, so
Oh my
I'm gonna
god.
be able to spend more time in EL because that's all I have time for nowadays.
Not
Uh
even playing League, just managing.
no, just managing because this guy can't do it, so someone has to
Whew,
do it.
Oh,
whew.
okay.
Uh, Clutch, do you have anything to say? I feel like we need to
Stats diff.
mediate some interpersonal conflict here.
Yo, right diff is what I say to that.
Okay. Okay, Matt Pizza. I see how it is. Riot Gap. It's always Riot
It's
Games.
always right gap, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We gonna get into the patch or what?
Yeah,
Tex?
so you guys already just ahead of the stream, you guys are kind of diving into it a little bit, getting some ideas out there about
Mhm.
some of the unique elements of this patch, right? And I want to jump in with Clutch. What are your first thoughts about like what single change in this patch is standing out to you the most going into week 7 and onward?
Mhm. So I'll give Matt Pizza the whole breaker stuff because he's a top laner somewhat, and I'm not. Obviously that is like a big change when they add, adding the whole breaker, adding whatever the other one calls like the chains or something. I forgot the full name. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'll let Matt Pizza focus on that. But one thing I do want to point out is that it might have not, you guys might have not seen this, but if you scroll down to the end of the patch notes, turrets actually, the top turret and bot turret now give 250 local gold now, more than they used to, which I think that's a decent amount. Maybe it's going to make it so now instead of throwing rift down mid, you start throwing it towards your top lane, which with the whole breaker meta and all that might be pretty good. Or you could throw it into your bot lane. It makes it a little bit easier to play to the side lanes, not necessarily just sprint it down mid. We're throwing Herald mid. Give me those plates. So I just wanted to point that out. Obviously, there's the usual champion nerfs that came through. I don't really think there's like any significant buffs to any champions. I think that we'll probably still see somewhat of the same meta besides top lane. That will just be the same. Shirelia's got nerfed. Moonstone did get buffed. So I hope you guys are ready because we're about to go into Moonstone meta for that 18th time. So get ready for that. But yeah, I think that maybe it's going to make it easier to play towards the side lanes. It looks like Riot's trying to make it where instead of just, A ramming it down mid, it's all about the 5v5s. Now we play towards the side lanes. So let's get the Matt Pizza's takes because I know he wants to explain the whole breaker and all that. That's all him. I just wanted to talk about the turret change and how it gives more local gold now.
All right. So, Hullbreaker, brand new item coming in to League of Legends, right? This item costs in, it brings in 50, 80, 300 health, right? Now, base stats, it's whatever. But then the passive, when no allied champions are nearby, gain 20 to 45 armor and MR, scaling with level, and deal 20% increased damage to towers. And large minions get buffed. Now, this kind of reminds me
Banner of
back
Command.
to the old, huh?
Banner of Command.
Yeah, like the old banner command, like holy cow. When back when I was first starting to play a league, right? It was back when we still had ZZ Rod and Banner of Command. And you would see a Yorick build both of those and just run it down top lane. Now, obviously, we don't have both the items now. We don't have ZZ Rod back in the game. Now, I wish they would, but Hullbreaker, I think it opens up to a lot more of the 4-1 comps, maybe even 1-3-1 comps in like certain situations. Um, like I just played a game, right? And like Trundle, oh my god, that champ is not bouncing the side lane, especially if you're an AD bruiser. Like if you lose lane to Trundle and he has Hullbreaker, Divine Center, that guy is almost unkillable. And in the upcoming weeks, I do think Trundle's gonna be a contested pick in the top jungle flex as well. And you know, like yeah, I just want to see more Trundle. Honestly, like he's such a old champ that you don't see a lot in comp play. Like sure, I mean if you see as a Juani, yeah, Trundle go-to pick. But now we
Yeah,
might see him
Trundle
just yeah.
Trundle tends to exist in that like tank meta, right? Like because he is an
Hmm.
anti-tank jungle champion. He's got decent clear speed, he's got decent utility, and he's really good at capitalizing on, like you said, Sejuani and other tanks. But seeing him in a non-tank meta because of this one stupid item, sorry, it's going to be interesting. Are there other picks that you guys think are going to be really potent coming into this next couple weeks?
You want to go, Matt Pizza? Or you want me to go?
You can go.
Who do you
You can.
you want me to go? Okay.
Yeah, you can go.
Hold on. Correct me. What did you say that was strong? Trundle? Is that did you
I
like
said
Yorick
yeah.
too?
I didn't say
Okay.
Yorick, but
Oh, you
Yorick,
didn't
yeah.
say York. Okay. So what I think is going to be really strong is I'll just list out some champions. I think Fiora is actually going to be really, really good for her split push because you want to play towards the 4-1, right? Like that's what this meta is going to become. It's going to be towards the 4-1 most likely. Yes, you can 1-3-1, but it's more towards the 4-1. Fiora absolutely just destroys anyone in a side lane, basically. There are counters, but basically wins any 1v1. On top of that, you give her the hole breaker, she's gonna delete turrets. And it's Fiora. Like Fiora's disgusting. Like already right now, she's an S plus tier pick. She has a 52% win rate in 8,000 matches already. Like she is pretty damn good. And obviously there's Camille. I think Camille will be very good. Wukong, I think will be good. Jax, Set, like even Riven, like all these champions that excel and taking down turrets and dragging pressure to them, add a hole maker on top of it. Oh my god, it's gonna be so disgusting.
So
Hmm.
going into talking about our teams, is there anyone that you like who we for everyone to know? We broke the teams up by each of us are going to talk about one of the teams that's in contention, right? Hawkthorn, Revolution, BDE, and Monkeys Rising. And a couple of those teams, specifically Revolution and BDE, play often very heavily through their top lane, at least with strong top laners. Now, I want to talk first about, uh, not to be biased, so I'm going to talk about the other team, BDE. Which one of us got BDE this time?
I think it
It,
was Matt
it
Pizza.
was me. Yep.
All right,
Yep.
Matt
All
Pizza,
right.
walk me through the hunger. What is this team? What is their flavor? What do they do? And what does it look like for them to? What do they need to do to secure them a spot in the playoffs?
Okay. So BD, they did have a like they're coming down to like a more stable roster now. Now, obviously, last week Altazi was on break, so we didn't see Altazi play, but we did have Psych play, and he does play similar. He does play a similar style like Altazi. So BD, the roster's coming in, and from what we've seen, right, BD likes to play around their top side of the map. They like to have their top laners, preferably on a carry, on a bruiser carry, in the case of Psych, or an AP carry in the case of Altazi, and what I imagine coming up, right, and how this team is gonna like continue playing and refining the playstyle is we'll see either Kale, Gwen, if Altazi is playing, right?
He's
Those
not
are
going to. It's going to be Psych most likely.
it is
I
gonna be
remember
Psych.
Altazi's taking a break. Remember, so I don't
Yeah,
think
but
he's going to play.
I think he's gonna be coming back in the next week, I believe.
Oh, I just know he told me he isn't playing for a while. So.
Yeah, I know he said that, but he might be coming out of retirement.
Oh my
but
god.
but if it is Psych playing, then I think we'll see like more so the Aatrox, right? Bruisers, Fiora, maybe Wukong, stuff that can make good use of this Hull Breaker and play towards that for one we were talking about. And with Psych, if he has a lead and with the split pushing meta that's gonna be coming up, I think that BDE will be able to just get their top lane ahead. He's gonna be a menace in the side lane. He's gonna be just sprinting it down, taking turret after turret, while the team is just stalling and is like, just messing around with the other team at the Baron or the Dragon, just doing the little NA dance, and just no one's gonna be able to stop Psych in the side lane.
Clutch, do you have any thoughts in addition to that? Do you agree with his take, or do you think things are going to play out a
Um,
little differently?
I think definitely for BDE, this meta change favors them very, very, very heavily. Like this is the perfect time that if there was going to be a change in the meta, it is towards top lane. And obviously we know BDE, they played towards their top laner, whether it be Syke, whether it be Altazi. And now that this meta has kind of evolved into, all right, let's get our top laner ahead. Let's, get him that hole breaker. Let's have him sit in a side lane and just take down towers while we chill mid. I think that this is perfect for the side of BDE. I mean, that's really how they play. It's towards their top lane. I'm not trying to discredit the rest of their lineup because one player I do want to point out, their mid laner, Ave, I think is his name or something. That guy smurfed against Dracana. Like against Dracana, he was doing exceptionally well. So I think they have very, very strong solo laners. And this team, honestly, like if they make playoffs, they could go pretty far. So yeah, I agree with what Matt Pizza said. I think that BDE has a very good shot to make it in. I mean, they're up against Flippa, which basically whoever wins is in, and whoever loses. So
Which, speaking of which, both of those teams, Flippa and BDE, this might be the most interesting matchup coming up for me at least. Is these are two teams that had very rough starts, to put it lightly, to the season, and have absolutely turned it around. Right? You've talked earlier, like Flippa has secured themselves a spot in playoffs, except for a few just wild scenarios that are statistically incredibly unlikely. And then BDE have put themselves into contention after a back half of the season that's shown them to just step up, right? Against the one and only Hyperion last week, right? Handing them their only loss of the season.
Exactly.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was just a demanding 2-0, commanding 2-0, right? They just stepped in and took the game over, took the match over. Well, I lied, didn't take it over. They were very long games, but the fact that they were able to maintain maintain through long games a 2-0 against the best team in the league, very impressive. So to that end, what are our thoughts about that matchup? How do you think, in particular, against Flippa, what do you guys think, Matt Pizza and Clutch? What do you guys think about that matchup going into this week?
You want first, Matt Pizza? Or you want me?
I talked a lot. You can go. You can go first again.
Okay. So honestly, this matchup is literally going to be the trade of sides of the map. So I think Flippa's bot lane is stronger than BDE's bot lane. But I think BDE's top laner is better, right? So I think the bottom side of the map for Flippa favors them, but the top side of the map I think favors BDE. So it's just going to come down to who executes better, right? Like, I mean, Spheric and Riv have looked insane. They've been one of the better bot lanes in this league. I mean, you could maybe say are the best bot lane in the league, if you want. But BFE Flippa, they're able for some reason to just lose the first couple of games early in the season. And then it's just the org buff, I guess, when they get into these later weeks, they just start slamming teams. Like it's not even close. And for the side of BDE, they are newer, right? Like we have not seen them around. This is their first season. They had a lot of roster issues this entire split. But now they finally, I guess, I would assume, found a stable roster. If I was to pick who is going to win, it's real. It's literally 50-50. I think it could go either way. But I'm gonna say Flippa's gonna win, and I think it'll be 2-1. That's just me going out on a limb. It's like 50-50. Flip a coin, and you could see whoever wins. But I think almost no matter what, it's going to go to game 3. Like both these teams are equally matched. It's just gonna come down to execution and game plan, basically.
Now we've talked, excuse me, we've talked a lot about BDE. We talked a lot about top laners, but I want to take a chance and, well, actually, first before we jump on, Matt Pizza, your thoughts about the matchup?
So, I like Clutch said, it is the trading of the sides, right? Like BD's top laner is top side is gonna be better than Flippa's top side, but then Flippa's ADC support Riv and Spheric just gonna smurf on BD. But one thing I do want to mention is right, like it's the other new item, Atmos. I know we didn't talk about it, but like yeah, Atmos chains, and like I just thought about this right now. So you know how we're gonna be trading sides, like hypothetically in this game, we're gonna be trading sides of the map, and we have um BDE's top side, the top laner Psych, right? He could build Atmos, and he could Vendetta Riv 60, and now Riv 60 is gonna be doing 30% less damage towards the top laner, and has 20% reduce, and ADC has 20% reduced tenacity. That's like that just makes it harder for Riv to play the game. And I think this patch is like really favors BDE with this second item here.
So
What do you guys think?
you think that? Do you think that is enough to push them over the edge to
I
just
think so.
to take the whole thing?
I do think that like Psyche is gonna be an unkillable menace in the top side with these two new items. If he wants to play for the team fight, right? Like champs like Aatrox, he's gonna reduce the tenacity of Riv, and he's also gonna take 30% reduced damage. That's a lot of damage, and like it's just so much this one item provides. I think it's gonna be enough to push BDE over the edge.
Clutch, do you have any last thoughts before we move on?
Nope, not really. I mean, we kind of covered everything I wanted to talk about in the series. That's really it. That's all I gotta say.
I want to take a second to talk about, because we talked about top laners, right? As I was alluding
Yep.
to a little bit earlier, but a team that might not be getting the most love this patch is a bot lane focused team who's had an interesting story, similar to PDE, similar to Flippa, Hawkthorne Esports. Now that's the
Yep.
team that I drew the straw on to talk about, and I've been trying to go through, and I was actually wanting to confirm for myself. I was looking back at their performance, their record, right, wins and losses
Mhm.
across the season, and it's a bit of a rough story. Started out, we did week 3 before they played against VBU Krypton, the week 3 Whirlpool episode, right? We did
Yep.
that before they went against VBU Krypton. We were so intently convinced that this team was going to be a top 3 team, right? They were playing this ecstatic, eccentric, crazy bot lane that was just diving under turrets in ways I'd never seen that you could dive under turrets. Absolutely just steamrolling through with this hyper aggressive, playing, making plays happen across the map super early, and that snowballed them to two very strong victories in the beginning of the season: 2-1 against Monkeys Rising and a 2-0 against Revolution. Now they lost out 2-1 in a pretty competitive series, from what I remember, to VBU Krypton, and that was it. That was the doom for this team.
Mhm.
Ever since then, it's been 2-0 to Abyssal loss. Let's see here. 2-1 lost to the ones we are just talking about, the anime arc BDE, right? And then a 2-0 loss to Flippa, right? 4 losses back to back to back. And we talked about it. Going into this last week, they go against Hyperion, a team that was on the other side of the coin, the team that we thought was going to be number one, or was going to contest Hawkthorne for number one. They've maintained that, losing only one game to the aforementioned BDE, have been just intense through the entire series, or the entire season, showing very little weaknesses and just dominating all the way through, right? Several 2-0s throughout the season. I am unsure if Hawkthorne, through their bot lane tools and what I think is a relatively stable mid lane, I may be wrong. Do you, I don't know if they have the tools necessary to be able to to be able to get an upset win against Hyperion. I'm very, I mean, after that early start, I'm very hesitant. I know we talked a lot about this matchup being incredibly exciting back in week 3. I'm a little bit less excited for it now because I think it may just be a Hyperion 2-0. I think we have to see Hawkthorne step up and pop off in the bot lane, have the rest of their map try to maintain, slow the bleeding. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think has happened across the season for Hawkthorne from the start with that early 2-0 and then going 0-4 for the rest of the season?
Yeah, Matt Pizza. What are your thoughts?
Oh, okay. But yeah, I think Hawkton coming in, they were kind of a no-name team, right? We've never seen or heard about Hawkton Esports before this season. And personally, when I saw them, I was just like, oh, okay, it's just another gold team. I wonder how they play. Week 1, when they were playing against Monkeys Rising, they had an incredible showing, right? They were diving beyond the tier 1 in the bot side. We had Art, Counters, and Mighty Mice. The synergy between those three players was unreal. And after week 1, we were kind of just like, okay, this team's pretty good, right? Like they were diving, they were doing things that like we haven't seen gold teams do before. They were taking risky plays, and like in week 2, we saw the same thing. So this kind of like built up the Hawkthorn hype. But then you gotta take into account, okay, but what were the teams that they played against? They played against Monkeys Rising and Rev. And I'm sorry, Tex, but those teams aren't the greatest of the EGL teams, right? And Monkeys Rising, they were still able to take a game off of Hawthorne. So this like aggressive bot lane strategy they have going on for Hawthorne, it's really risky. And if they do mess it up, then it's like they're just put so far behind in the game. And we see teams either countering that, just nullifying the bot lane, or like waiting for those mistakes in the bot lane dive, and they just turn it around. And I think that's the problem that Hawkdown faces. They're going for these risky dives in the bot side because the rest of the map is substantially weaker than their bot side. So they're trying to get their ADC ahead. But if you just nullify the ADC through bot lanes like Riv 60 and Spheric, or like uh VB Krypton's bot lanes, it just nullifies them. It's hard for Hawkdown to have another what am I trying to get at? Winning condition, or winning like a chance to win the game somewhere else in the map.
Yeah, like the avenue that they have is pretty brittle, right? It's a high risk approach. They sacrifice a lot across the map to get this bot lane going, and they have to match up against what we've seen as other very strong, very consistent, very durable bot lanes that play a variety of styles. Some that include absorbing that pressure, right, and
Mm-hmm.
taking that pressure in, and denying that those effective turret dives, those effective plays in the other game that just snowball. Without that snowball, they don't really seem to have a tool available to them. Clutch, we got to hear Matt Pizza's thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say about Hawkthorn's journey across the season and what it's
I gotta be careful what I say.
I want to hear I want to
Uh,
hear your thoughts on their story and what they got to do to make it into playoffs.
Yeah, I gotta be careful what I say because I like coach this team.
Whoa, whoa!
Who cares that it's leaks? So this team, what I will say is that I don't think they necessarily got worse. Instead, I think that every other team got better. Like in the beginning of the season, yes, Hawthorne was slamming teams, right? But that's because it was early into the season, right? You could do that. Like teams didn't really know how to play as a team. They were just coming in. It was the first early weeks. Hawthorne, they've already been together a little bit. So they were just, they're just like, all right, we know how to play better than you. We're slamming you. Then once we started to get a little bit into the middle of the season, a little bit later, they started dropping these series because teams finally figured out, hey, this is how we play. I don't necessarily think Hawthorne, yes, they were slumping a little bit, but I don't really think they got worse. I think they're the same skill level. I just think everyone else in the league leveled up. So now they're kind of stuck in this spot where it's like, well, every team's better now, and we haven't really gotten better. The way this team needs to win is I'm not going to focus on counters because I think counters is a great player for sure. But I honestly think that it's all on Arth, the jungler. This guy's insane. He's a really good jungler. Like he probably top 3 in the league. Um, but if Arth isn't able to control the map, the game's over. Like they cannot play the game. So it's basically on him to get ahead and then use that pressure to help his solo lanes because the solo lanes are a bit weaker, right? We know this. Their solo lanes aren't the best. They're kind of those like utility, like we're just gonna try to enable counters, try to enable Arth. So if Hawkthorn's going to win, it's all off the jungle. It's literally all Arth. And if this guy gets fed, helps his soul laners, maybe they can beat Hyperion because Hyperion did lose the BDE. Like they did lose. It's not like they're unbeatable now. They have shown they can lose. But personally, it's gonna be really hard, man. They gotta come up with something insane to win. Because Hyperion's still the number one. Now you could maybe say VBU is, but I still think Hyperion's a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, Hawthorne, they got to play through Arth. That's the only way I see they win. Otherwise, they're probably looking at a 2-0 for Hyperion.
Well, looking at that matchup against Hyperion, and you talk about them having lost last week, right? That which is a significant loss. Walk me through what you think was the cause for that loss. Like, what did BDE do to land that 2-0 over Hyperion? What is Hyperion's weakness?
Yeah. So they neutralized mid. That's it. I mean, Dracana did not carry. Dracana, I mean, maybe he was having an off week, which happens, right? But BDE's mid laner, Ave, I believe,
Yep.
he He did it. Like he neutralized Dracana. Dracana's just been finding all these leads. He's been played around. BDE goes, all right, we'll just pick something that scales, and we'll just won't die to you in lane. And then whoop-de-doo, Psych is fed, and now Dracana's not fed, and it's like, wait, hold on a minute. What's going on here? We can't win now. Dracana's not fed. And like, yes, Hyperion is still an exceptionally good team. I think every single one of their players are very, very good. But they do put a decent amount of pressure on Dracana. It's their star player. Every team has a star player, and you expect that player to perform. You expect, like, if we enable this guy, he's going to just 1v9. They weren't allowed to enable him. And at the end of the day, that's how BDE won. They played towards their win con while stopping the other team's win con. And they just 2-0. It was pretty simple.
Yeah, so is this going to be like this Zuko versus oh dude, I'm blanking on the name. Zuko versus
Arth?
Arth matchup. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Do they like it feels like there's just immense pressure on Arth. Like you were already describing,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
You got to put the Hawkthorn mid laner on something that can, like you said, if we're trying to learn from the one piece of data that we have about Hyperion, right, which is nullify the mid, put a safe scaling mid laner that can absorb pressure, not die, right? We saw the Yone, we saw the Vladimir, 2 picks that are really good at just, yeah, let's hang out, let's lane. We might do a little dance, we might do some damage here and there, but I can just sit here and exist and scale up, right? That may sound like a pretty low skill way of playing the game, but I would say that like it takes a really competent and confident mid laner to be able to pull that off, because you have to know exactly when you need to pull away, when to sacrifice things when you have to, when you can take advantages, when you can steal those little bits of pressure, how to track the enemy laner, because if you're going to play that absorbing style, they're going to get bored, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to try to leave lane and affect something else. So there's a lot of like big picture stuff going on with the team to be able to like, or to going on in that style of mid lane, in that like what Ave was trying to do. Do you think that the mid jungle synergy and the mid jungle dynamic for Hawkthorn is going to be able to accomplish that, if that's the route that they try to go to beat Hyperion?
I mean, I think 2v2 Hyperion has the better 2v2. But I think Arth is it. If you, for example, put Arth versus Zuko, I think Arth very narrowly beats Zuko, right? But if you put Dracana against Hardstuck Brother, who's mid, I love my guy Hardstuck Brother. Great player, great utility player, but like you've got to say it's pretty heavily in Dracana's favor. So just based off of that, it's going to be really difficult to neutralize Dracana. However, if Hawkthorn can somehow find a way, because BDE did it and no one expected BDE to do it. So if somehow Hawkthorn can now do it and neutralize and they win, biggest thing is if they win. Because think about if Hawkthorn does win. Then you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Hyperion's lost to BDE and lost to Hawkthorn. Then you're like, is Hyperion like, what is going on? Like, you got to start raising some concerns because they should have beat BDE and they lost. Everyone knows they should have won and they lost. So that already to me is like, wait, like, what's going on here? Why are we losing to BDE? We should never lose. And then if they go and lose to Hawkthorn, you're like, hold on, wait a minute, guys. Like, this is, and it's right before playoffs too. Like, you are literally going into playoffs.
If Hawkthorn wins, they have the head-to-head against Monkeys Rising and Revolution.
Yes, they do.
That if I'm small brain, this stuff's not my brackets are not my cup of tea. I'm not the greatest at it, but would that not just lock out Monkeys Rising and Revolution even if they win?
I believe so.
That's
if Hawkthorn wins.
That's if Hawkthorn wins over Hyperion. I know that's like pretty straightforward, but like that seems really impactful to me, right? Hawkthorn kind of carries in a lot of ways. Hawkthorn and BDE carry the fate of the league on their shoulders.
Yep.
For two teams that had kind of opposite starts of the season, right? Hawkthorn started strong. I want to, like, Matt Pizza, you did mention they beat Monkeys Rising, they beat Revolution Esports, and now retrospectively we're looking at it and like, okay, they're in the bottom half of the league here. At that time, Revolution came out and had a strong starting match against Flippa. I believe taking that, was it 2-1 or 2-0?
It was a 2-0, yeah.
And then they had an exciting 2-0 loss to Hawkthorn, though it was competitive. And then Monkeys Rising took a game off them. So while retrospectively, yeah, they're playing against the relative peers at the time, we thought both Monkeys Rising and Revolution, maybe more Revolution, were stronger than what they turned out to be. so Hawthorne had that story, right? And then BDE
Mhm.
had the almost inverse, right? They came out, what's the opposite of swinging? Tripping? They came out tripping, right? They tripped over their feet.
They
Uh,
just were done.
and then, like, halfway through the season, they somersaulted right back up, right? Like, just did
Yep.
a flip, and they're back and running. Two teams that had the opposite directions, opposite trajectories this season, and they both have the, like, control over what happens, right?
Hmm.
The top four, they're relatively locked, they're hanging out.
Yep.
But to be that barrier of entry for Monkeys and Revolution, Hawthorne and BDE kind of control that fate, and that's just really exciting to me. Matt Pizza, do you have any
Hmm.
thoughts before we jump down to talking about Monkeys Rising?
Um, no, I think you guys did encompass a lot of it, and it encompassed what I wanted to say. So we can move on to Monkeys Rising.
All right. Well, I know that was clutch. You got Monkeys Rising and Revolution to talk about, but we could share that burden with you here. But
Okay.
just in general, you hit us with your initial thoughts, right? Talk us through, like I've been saying for everyone, the journey that Monkeys Rising has been on since the start of the season. Even before, we got a lot of. I think we have a lot of newcomer or familiar faces on this roster.
Yeah. So, Monkeys Rising is that like it's the EDL team basically. It's like the great players from EDL decided we're gonna come together. Let's go into a gold league. Let's see what happens. And I guess let's see what happens is now they're in playoff contention. I mean, I honestly think they've overperformed so far. Like everyone had them at the bottom. Like everyone thought this team really maybe they pick up a win this season and like that was it because you look at the other rosters and you're just like, well, they're just skill gapped, right? Like they're gold, you're silver, you're just gonna lose. They've overperformed. I think even if they don't make playoffs, they overperform. Like they have taken games off of good teams, and they've even won some. We saw last week when they went up against Rev, where every single analyst was like, "Yeah, Rev's just gonna win. It's gonna be skill gap." And then, nope, Monkeys Rising just come and slap them around in 2-0. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty impressive. Only problem is they don't have many head-to-heads. They have lost against almost every team. They have the head-to-head against BDE. And they have the head against Rev, but they don't have it against Hawthorne, which might end up screwing them over. Um, so it's kind of hard for Monkeys Rising because they also play VBU this week, right? And I'm not saying that it's kind of doomed, but VBU have shown later on in the season they are a very good team. I mean, they do always drop a game, so maybe Monkeys Rising picks up a game. But it's going to be really hard for them to win. And Monkeys Rising, especially younger roster. Well, you say younger, lower ranked roster. Our silvers kind of new to gold. Um, I mean, like it's very, very difficult for this team to win, is what I'm going to say. And them making the playoffs, you need some other things to happen, not necessarily just them, right? Like as you said, Hawthorne, BDE kind of carry the torch. They both have to screw up for them to have a chance to make playoffs, honestly. So we'll see. We'll see if that's going to happen. I think Monkeys Rising have overperformed, though. I do have a lot of praise for this team. They have looked good, and they've done better than I expected because I had them literally winning like maybe one series, and they've won two, which means they are overperforming, and they're still contending. It's the last week, and they are still contending. So props to them for sure. All of them overperformed, but you can only go so far.
I want to talk about real quick VBU Krypton. So
Yep.
we've been hyping up Hyperion
Yes.
all season, right? They dropped one game. VBU Krypton's got the same record. They have
Yes,
been
that's true.
quietly, just maybe not so quietly, but at least it feels like to me they've just been there, winning games, making their way up to the top. And I want to hear Matt Pizza's thoughts on what VBU Krypton has that other teams don't, and why they're 5-1. What happened?
Is that even a question?
Hmm. I think they're bottling, right? I think no. I guys, I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry for everyone, but like, it's just kite and gap. I'm sorry. Like, this guy is consistently performing really well on the mid carry side. We've seen him pull out his Altazzi's cosplay Kale. We've seen him play Yone, and then like the one time he played Seraphine, his team didn't win. I'm not saying that's like there's a correlation here, but like if this guy isn't on carries, VBO loses. And with that kind of like cause and effect. It's just hard to like. It's just a kite and gap every single game. Every single game. Like the moment he was on the roster, it just made VBU go from like a fourth, fifth team to like first, second.
Clutch, can I ask you for your input as well, or are you going to be equally as biased?
Um,
I'm kidding. I'm
no,
kidding. Thank you for the breakdown,
you
Matt
know,
Pizza.
listen. I'll give you a hot take. You want a hot take? I'll give you a hot take. All
Yes.
Fire and Chitin are the best mid jungle 2v2 in the league. There's my hot take.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to defend that hot take, sir. What? Who?
Yeah.
They are the best 2v2 or mid jungle duo.
Mid jungle.
Who do they beat out in your mind and why? How are they better than Hyperion? How are they better than Abyssal?
Yeah. So you look at Abyssal, DTM Darkstar, and the Fire of the Fox. Now I think the Fire of the Fox is a very, very good mid laner. Like this guy's pretty good. But no offense to DTM Darkstar, but he's probably like an average jungler. And I think All Fire is top 3, probably top 2 up there. So I mean that's how he just beats Abyssal, like just based off of that. And then Hyperion Origin, I do think it's close. I think Zuko and Dracana are very good together. But I think this duo of All Fire Chitin, they just play like All Fire is just willing to sacrifice everything for Chitin. He is just like, all right, you know what, Chitin? You want my camps? You want my second blue? Come and take it. You want Rift? You want plates? Come and take it. All Fire's like, I will enable you, Chitin, and you can 1v9. I'll be the silent carry. I'll sit here, just be like, I'm chilling. While you go and do all the flashy stuff, I'll just sit back, get some assists. I'm getting objectives. I'm getting you some plates, some gold. I'm having a good time. I don't got to do much. You're having a good time because you're 10-0, absolutely smurfing on everyone. But I do think these two play exceptionally well with each other. Obviously, Chitin's play style, he wants to 1v9. He's the hyper carry. All Fire is the I want to enable a carry. Put them together, beautiful. Exactly what it's perfect. And for Hyperion Origin, I think Dracana is very good, but obviously, maybe if they won last week, I would have argued that okay, well, maybe Zuko and Dracana are better, but we saw them, lose to BDE. With I guess JJ and Ave did win the 2v2. And Dracana off week didn't look so hot. So that is what makes me say that All Fire and Chitin are the best 2v2 jungle in the league. I think the only team that really comes close is Zuko Dracana. I think everyone else, it's not even.
All right. All right. You did talk a little bit about DTM Darkstar there and Fire the Fox. I want to give us a chance. I want to throw it back over to Matt Pizza here for a second to talk about Abyssal Sapphire before we finish off and talk about Revolution. What has stood out to you about this team? They're sitting 3-3, right? They're happily.
Rev?
No, I'm talking about
Abyssal.
Abyssal.
Oh, okay, my bad.
No. I'm not. I'm in reality, man. I'm here. I'm okay.
I was like, okay.
No. Abyssal. They're sitting 3-3. Talk to me about what you think about this team. What are their strengths? How have they found success? And what do you think their playoff picture looks like?
So back let's talk. Abyssal had a few roster changes. So let's talk about like the early game EGL Abyssal, right? When we have James Moretti in the mid lane, and I believe they had uh Blood Beast as support, and I don't remember who their ADC was. I think it might have been Abyssal New Life as the ADC. They had a different roster,
What?
basically, is what I'm getting at. And we
That's
saw
not what it was, Matt Pizza.
I don't remember. That's why I said I wasn't
It
sure.
was the Chubby Bunny. Remember, was their ADC? They had Mew Life support, and they had James Moriarty mid.
Yeah, I knew James Moretti was their
Yeah.
mid laner, but I did not remember their ADC. But
Yeah, it was Chubby
yeah,
Bunny.
yeah, like it was just the James Moriarty show on his quirky. Like that's from early on. What like stood out to me, right? Text like this team had like a hyper carry mid laner, and he was basically Kaiden for this team. He was just absolutely smurfing it,
Uh-huh.
and then later on they decided to put him into the bot lane, and he was finding success there. And they brought in the Fire of the Fox, who was a good mid laner coming in from BOL, I believe. And now with this new roster, like they have a good mid laner, they have a good ADC, and they have Golem in the top lane who can play what his team needs to. And for me, I believe this team can get a lot of success and just the classic protect the ADC comp with a control mage mid. And I think that's how Abyssal makes it to playoffs and could potentially win it all.
All right. Clutch, do you have any thoughts? Do you disagree at all with
With Abyssal,
Matt Pizza's take on Abyssal?
um, I think Abyssal's a good team, but to me, it's like right. I said this earlier when we were off air. I was like, Hyperion, VBU are top two. It's very clear. Then you go down a tier. Then it's like Abyssal, Flippa. Then you go down another tier. It's the other four teams. I think that's very clear. I think Abyssal will beat all the teams under them. I think it's not very hard for them. But I think when they go up against VBU Hyperion, it's going to be a little difficult. I mean, we saw last week Abyssal lost to VBU. Yes, they were able to take a game when VBU just decides every single week we're going to 2-1 because I don't know why. It's just what they like to do. They like to for fun for a game. But Abyssal is a solid third place team. Like they are the third team. It's very clear they are third. It's very clear they're not second. Very clear they're not fourth. They are exactly
That
where they
is
should be.
that is the most lukewarm take I've ever heard you have.
Yeah, exactly.
They
They're right where
are
they should.
a 3-3 third place team, and
Yep.
that's exactly where they belong. And you know
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
Every league needs to have those, right? That is your
Exactly.
barrier to entry to here. It's not to playoffs, but to probably making it deep into playoffs, right?
They can go
Uh,
deep. Yeah.
so whoever is able to, they'll be that barrier, they'll be that gatekeeper, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've gotten a chance to talk about most of the teams, except for Revolution Esports, which is the last team that's in contention for a playoff spot. And Clutch, that was another one of the ones that you drew the straw on to talk about.
Yep. So I'll talk a little bit about Rev. So Rev to me, right? I thought they were going to be like Abyssal. Well, like not when I say like Abyssal, like kind of that like gatekeeper team where they would be like fourth or fifth maybe, but they would be the gatekeeper. They'd be the bar. They would beat the teams under them pretty easily, but they would get slammed against the teams ahead of them. I think personally they've a little bit underperformed this split. I had really high hopes for this team. I thought on paper they looked pretty good. I am surprised by their top lane Vixper. I think this guy has overperformed. I didn't really know who he was coming in. I'm like, all right, you know what? Screw it. Let's see how this guy's gonna do. I maybe an average gold top laner. No, he's above average. I'd say he's pretty good. Top four tops in the league, maybe. I mean, there's a big clump of top laners that I think are actually above average for top lane. I think it's one of the most stacked roles. But the problem with me for Revolution is that most of the players on the team see the game in a certain lens, right? They see it how they want to play it, and they want to play it that way. And if we play it a different way, they think it's a little weird, right? It's not the correct way to play in their. And there's a lot of those quote unquote people maybe on the team. I know Sharpbotter, very very good player. This guy's an exceptional support. But he likes to play the game a specific way. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Like if your whole team buys into that way, perfect. But if your whole team doesn't buy into that way and they think, well, maybe we could play it this way, that's where he maybe sometimes falls off. And it's not just specifically him. There's multiple players in this league that see the game in one lens. And if it's not played that way, it does hurt them. And I think with Revolution, they have a lot of those players on that team. A lot of those type of players on that team. And I think that's why they're 2-4. I think skill, they are there. They can match pound for pound with some of these top teams. However, we still don't really know how they play. Like the identity crisis. I don't know how this team plays. Like, do they play towards bot? Do they play towards top? Do they play towards mid? I haven't really seen a set play style, and we're in week 7, so that's to me what has been the kind of thing for Revolution. It's been the glaring issue that they still don't really have a way to play the game that how they want to, and unfortunately, that's why they're 2-4.
Matt Pizza, thoughts?
I kind of have to agree with him, right? Like Revolution, like we've seen other teams have like a solid playstyle of how they want to play, whether it be to their mid lane or to their top or to their bot lane. But Rev to me just they're just kind of like, okay, guys, who's ahead? Who can we play off each game? And it's not like It's not, they don't have a consistent playstyle. They don't have the consistent, guys, I'm gonna carry, give me the resources and we will win this. And it's like this playstyle is just so like game to game dependent that it's like it's just not a good playstyle. Not right now anyway. And like with this being a gold league, it is gonna like it just affects the team going into a game without a game plan. I mean, like, sure, you can play for objectives. Sure, you can like have a general idea once like 20 minutes is up, but that early game and the mid to late, like, not having a plan just completely derails a team.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't want to share too many thoughts because it's my
Yeah, because
team.
you own them.
But I appreciate the very level-headed and very specific analysis. I have to agree. I think it's a team that has a lot of great pieces. Everyone on the team has a lot of talent,
Mhm.
and they're in contention at 2-4. So is half of the league, right? Half of the league is at 2-4 for a variety of reasons. It's been exciting. Like we've talked about Revolution, we've talked about Monkeys Rising. Both of these teams have had their own unique stories to get to this point. Hawthorne Esports started out strong, 0-4 the back half of the season. BDE, the inverse. They started out falling, now they're rising, right? Or or climbing. It's just been a very exciting it's an exciting situation to be in, especially with all the different stories that are that are playing out to lead us to this point. Now I want you guys. We have about. I'm looking at the time. We got 5 minutes left before we hit that hour
Okay.
mark of the stream. So I want to
Yep.
hear you guys tell me what is the matchup that you are most excited for in week 7.
Already got mine. Matt Pizza, you go.
Are you okay?
You already know what I'm gonna say, most likely. So I think.
Hmm.
I think.
I I think I think I know what you're gonna say, and it's probably gonna be the same as mine. I'm gonna say BDE versus Flipper.
All right. Well, that was mine.
All right,
I mean,
BDE versus Flippa. Let's break it down, Clutch. What's so exciting to you about BDE versus Flippa?
I mean, it's literally like the match, right? Like this is it. This is gonna whoever wins is in. I mean, well, Flippa's in. So I mean, if BDE wins, they're in. And I think BDE and Flippa is the closest match in skill because I'll just come out and say it. Abyssal Rev's a little one-sided. VBU Monkeys Rising's one. Hyperion Hawk one-sided, right? Like I think those teams can win, but it's definitely more favored. The pendulum swings to one side a little than in this series. BDE Flip Up. It's very close. It means a lot because it's basically BDE's life. Like you said, they carry the torch. They're one of the teams that carry the torch. Are they going to keep going forward, or is the storm going to hit and they're going to die? All right, like that's what this is. Um, so it's to me the most important game, and the closest. That's why I have it as my game to watch. I think it'll be super entertaining. If I had to pick a second game to watch, I think it would be Hyperion Hawthorne. I think that's the next closest. I think the other two are a little bit one-sided. Maybe Abyssal Rev could be close. I think BBU Krypton Rising is the most one-sided, I'd say. But yeah, I think BD Flip is just going to be entertaining to watch. It means the most, in my opinion. So that's why I picked it.
Matt Pizza, tell me high level what your thoughts are about the BDE Flippa, why it's special to you, but I also want to know specifically what 1v1 matchup across the 5 positions gets you the most excited for this game.
hmm. I think I'm just gonna be biased. As a top laner, it's gonna be the top
Oh,
matchup.
my.
It's biased. It's in my blood. The top matchup is all I care about. Like, yeah, sure, jungle, gab, water. Yeah, I don't really care. I don't care about the rest of the lane. I don't look at the map. The rest of my map is actually just like covered off. All I care about is the top side of the map. Um, I think Psych versus Ridley Prime. Um, I do think Ridley Prime is a good top laner. We haven't talked much about him, but he is a solid top laner. Granted, Psyche is like maybe 1 or 2 tiers above him, but I think if Ridley Prime is able to neutralize Psyche, then BDE is gonna have a harder time playing the game. Now, obviously, we did early on in the stream talk about like the items and how that might have play into BDE's chances, but
Mhm.
like just looking at this top matchup, I think if Ridley Prime is able to neutralize it, maybe even put Psyche behind, flip his chances to win the game just skyrocket up. And this top matchup is going to determine a lot about how the game's going to be played. Now that's not to say like jungle is like we also have to think about junglers, but you know who really cares about them? It's like junglers are useless anyway, man. Like
True. Jungle death.
Jungles are
But yeah.
just extension of the top lane, right?
Yep.
yeah,
That's how
jungles
it
are
works.
just your jungler never ganks and his jungler always ganks. It's just
Yeah,
how it
jungle.
is.
Just how it
Oh my
is. Just how it is. All right, guys, we have just a minute. We are just a minute shy of the
I-
1 hour mark of the stream. I want to open
Yep.
it up to any last thoughts before we
Yes.
wrap things up.
I've got one thing. Okay. We're gonna spice it up a little bit. Hot takes for playoffs, okay? Obviously we don't know who's locked in, but I want some spicy takes. Just throw it out there. Anything spicy you can think of.
Monkeys
It could
Rising,
be
5th place.
you're going
Oh,
Monkeys Rising, get 5th. You think
Yep.
they make playoffs?
Okay.
Okay.
oh
Are you
my
gonna back it up?
goodness.
Back it up a little bit. Just
What?
a
No.
basic
What?
backup.
No.
Basic backup. Basic backup. I'm not telling you to be like, this team's insane. They're gonna get 5th. Give me a basic backup. How are they gonna get 5th? Very basic. Can be a couple sentences.
Okay, Ayot has consistently doing really good in all of these matches, and I think if he can refine playing with the rest of his team, that they could, in theory, be a good contention for playoffs and for 5th place.
Okay. Tex, you want to go or do you want me to go?
My dude, my spiciest of spicy takes is that BDE beats Flippa, takes that 4th spot, goes up against Hyperion. Is that even possible in match 1, 1st seed, 4th seed?
I don't. Yeah, 4th versus 1st is possible, but I don't think they can
They
get
can't.
4th. Like, I think they're locked into lower bracket regardless.
Okay. Well, then my spicy take is Flippa locks 4th, BDE locks 5th. Flippa beats Hyperion, BDE beats Hyperion to knock them out of the tournament. That's my spicy take.
Okay.
Oh,
Alrighty then. Well, that kind of takes away what I was going to say.
Oh no!
Sort of. It doesn't really kill it. My spicy take is BDE makes semis.
All right.
I think they will be top 4. Like, they will be in the semis. It'll be random team. And when I say semis, I'm talking like loser semis. I'm not talking obviously the winner semis. I'm talking the one where, or loser finals, I guess you could say. I'm talking where, because obviously the bracket, it's 5 and 6 go loser, 1 and 2, 3, 4 are in the upper bracket. They get double elimination. I'm talking about the match where it's like the winner goes to the finals from the losers bracket. I'm telling you, they're going to be there. That's where they're going to be, which means they're going to basically win the losers bracket. That's where I think BD will be. That's my spicy take.
All right. That would be an amazing turnaround, guys. I love these takes. Is there anything else before we wrap things up?
Akblow's best top in the league. Don't quote me.
okay, that's a hot take.
I'm kidding.
All right. Well, with that, everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the second episode of the Whirlpool. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you on the Rift this Friday for EDL. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Peace.